I just want to give you a quick comparison between JSON and XML. So we've got our XML example here, and this is that same person. So we've got first name, last name, age, and we see that we've got address, and then we've got a bunch of parameters there for address, a bunch of values there, phone numbers. So we've got home phone numbers. We can list out a bunch of different phone numbers. So that there's some structure here, but this is a whole lot harder to read than if we went over here. We can see that these are at the very root. So they've got the first name, last name, age, and then the address. So there's more information contained within the address. We've got the main address value, and then we've got the address, city, state. So we've got more details essentially. So everything is nested under the parent address. So we're just going down one level here, and we've got additional information. So same thing for phone numbers. So you can have multiple phone numbers, home, fax, and these might vary from person to person. And that's why it's placed within this type of format. And of course, we are going to be covering this at a later point, but this is the square bracket. We've got curly brackets. So we've got a lot of stuff happening here. But at the very basic part, the very base of what JSON is we can see that it's got the first name, last name, age. So these are at the very root. So let's see how this relates to when we are also writing it within JavaScript. So let's open up our editors, and what we're going to do is we're just going to declare a person. So variable person. So this, if you're familiar with JavaScript, this is very familiar. Also similar to JavaScript object, we use the curly brackets and we can create a person. And then let's just console log out that person. So we can take a closer look at the details contained within this variable. I'm going to do a split screen between my editor. So basically what I've done is I've just gone to File, I've gone to the index page, because we are going to be using just JavaScript for the next few lessons, just to get more familiar with how JavaScript literal objects are, and then we're going to compare them and start writing them out as JSON objects. So all we need in order to render out JavaScript is a browser, and that's what we have. We're using Chrome browser here, opening up index.html. So we've got our basic page. We're going to open up the dev tools. So going into the console there, we see that we've got our objects. So we can go ahead and we can save that, refresh. So we've got a completely blank person here. So if we go into and we look at some of the details that we saw earlier, we had the curly brackets, and then we had first name separated within these paired values. So we've got a parameter, so the first name, and notice that we've got quotes around it. And with JavaScript, we don't necessarily need those. So I'll show you an example of how it differs as well. And then we need to have a value. So the idea here is that we select first name, and when we select first name within this object, it's going to return back the value of John. So let's save that, refresh, and there we go. So we've got first name John. And we can also log out person, and we can do first name, and that will return back John. So fairly straightforward. And if we do it within a JavaScript object, let me just show you JavaScript. So we know with JavaScript objects, we don't necessarily need to quote around them. So I can call this person 2, and let's go about here and refresh it. And if I type in person 2, we can see that it looks identical to the JSON format. So that's one of the first lessons to consider when we are using JSON. It's going to look very similar, but if we try to lint this value here, it's not going to come out as lint. So let's open up a JSON linting tool. And these are used in order to better read the JSON and to just ensure that we are JSON formatted. The one that I wanted to use is JSON lint. So there are a number of different ones, of course. So first of all, let's try pasting this one into JSON. And then you paste it in, you do validate JSON, and we see it as valid JSON. And now let's try this one. And this one, as mentioned, it's not going to come up as valid JSON. So it's expecting that this needs to be quoted around. So always keep that in mind, that that is really the big difference between JavaScript literals and JSON. So the next thing that we have is we had a last name for this person. And let's bring that to an uppercase and save. Go back out to our file. So there we go. So we've got first name, last name, really easy to pull this information back and make use of it. And we did say that there's a number of different types of data that we can use. Let's clean this up a bit. So I've got a beautifier here to stack them. So comma separate them. And this time let's do age. And on this end, we've got a number of options. So same as with JavaScript, if we have numbers, we can just do it within that type of format. Then we can also do Boolean values if we wanted to. So if we wanted to specify checked in, and we can do true or false. So let's just save that. So let's see what this looks like now. So just as with JavaScript, and that now this one is going to be a valid JSON. So let me go back over to the lint, paste it in. We don't need the colon at the end, so just get rid of that and validate JSON. So it is valid JSON format. Booleans, numbers, strings, all of them are available just like they are in JavaScript in order to add into your JSON object. And in order to access these values, we can do it within the same name, same format as JavaScript, so person, and we can do age if we want, and that will return back that value. What I want you to do now is open up your editor and create a JSON object within JavaScript. So all we're doing is linking it to the value of person, and it's going to link back as an object here in JavaScript. And then we can make use of it within our code. So console log out any one of the values here within person, and also open up your console and return back some of those values to get comfortable with grabbing values from a JSON object. So this is a very simple and straightforward one, but they are going to get a whole lot more complex. So get familiar with that. In the next lesson, we are going to be looking at creating JSON objects and looking at this in a little bit more detail. So that's coming up.